Hi, I'm Connie from Connie Thompson Cake Design, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a sugar rose, both in food safe grade in a medium size and a large rose completed with stems and leaves and calyxes. So to run through the tools for what we need to create this flower, I'm going to run through it for you now. So you're going to need a petal cutter for the rose, and I would always suggest doubling up on your petal cutters, your flower cutters. You don't need to buy a new flower cutter for each flower. So for this rose, I'm actually using a ranunculus cutter because I prefer the shape of it. It's got the shape of a rose petal just as much as it has the shape of a ranunculus petal, so why give yourself the expense of buying two different ones? We also have the rose leaf cutter in small and medium. The large is quite large. You're going to need polyballs. So depending on if you want to do a medium sized flower or a really large rose, I kind of go between a 3 and a 3.5 centimetre ball. So you're going to need those. And a toothpick, cocktail stick, or a wire. So the benefit of doing it with a cocktail stick is that that's completely food safe already, so you can pop that straight in your cake, no bother. Doing it with a wire gives you a stem, so if you were wanting the rose on the outside of the cake going up the cake, then you would want to do it on a wire so that you've got that actual stem to work with. So this is a 20 gauge wire. We have our flower paste, which is Robert Haynes flower paste in white. I tend to always just stick with white. I don't buy really the pre-coloured stuff because I like to colour it up myself anyway, so I always just buy white. And the Robert Haynes paste is really soft and really flexible and really forgiving. So like if you have a lot of petals to cut and a lot of petals to work with, this stays quite soft and gives you that time that you need. You need a medium-sized ball tool and a petal pad to kind of work your flower on. And of course you need a good rose veiner. This one is off Etsy, and I really can't pronounce the name. Mond Mon or something like that. They're from Germany. They are the best veiners that I have ever come across, so it's really worth investing. It's actually not expensive as a veiner. It's expensive as postage to the UK, but it's totally worth it. And then I have an Arabal leaf veiner for the rose leaf. And depending then if you're doing the full stem, you're going to want a calyx on the back of your rose. So I just have a medium and a large here, depending on what way it turns out. The good thing with sugar flowers is you create the colours that you want. So if you want it to have a white stem, you have a white stem. If you want a green stem, you have a green stem. So there's lots of different flower shapes that you can buy. So I've just got the white and the two different tones of green here. And we'll see whatever one we want to use. I've got royal icing. So if we do the food safe method, then I use royal icing to secure that to it, and this one I have done the day before and it's as if I've super glued it in, so you're going to want to do that the day beforehand, just so that that sets. And I've also got Rejuvenator and Confectioner's Glaze for colouring up our leaves, and I will show you what we do with that. I've got my rolling pin to roll out our paste. If you don't have a wee block, so when we're working with our flower and we need to set it down, this is a wee block that you can use, but if you don't have that, literally just a bit of polystyrene that you can just keep putting things into is fine. We've got our glue to glue on our petals, pliers for if we're actually doing the full stem and we're using the wire through the polyball, we need to tighten that up, so I've got a pair of pliers for that. We've got 24 gauge wire in green for our leaves, and then I have a selection of petal dusts here to colour up the rose itself and the leaves at the end. And I've also got forest green for our leaves in Colour Splash to colour up the paste beforehand for the leaves. So that, I've got a wee pair of scissors, our brush and a wee craft knife just in cases, and that is pretty much it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create your core of your flour. And like I said before, if you use a cocktail stick, that's completely food safe already. So once you have your flour made, it can go straight into a cake, and it's really easy to actually then put in a cake. Or if you're wanting to have a full stem of a flour, then you're going to need to use a wire. So I'm going to show you how to create both now. So the food safe method, you just do it with royal icing, and I just buy pre-made stuff from Tesco's, and you just dip your cocktail stick into the royal icing, and make sure there's a good bit on the bottom of the stick, and you literally just pop it in and then take off any excess and just wipe it around the bottom. So that is that done, but that now needs time to dry and harden. So do that the day before if you're using that method. The other one then for the stem is we are using a 20 gauge wire, and you are going, so there's always like a join in your ball, so you don't want to put this through the join in case it ends up splitting it off, but you're just feeding that through till it comes out the other side, and you want to centralize it, and then you're just going to bring those wires down and start twisting. And so if there is any movement in your ball whatsoever, then you take your pliers and you just make sure and twist that tight. Because you don't want, once you start to put weight on this ball, you don't want the ball to start then moving and causing your flour to be unstable. So that is basically that centre made, and don't worry that half the ball fell off there because you're going to cover that anyway. So that is one method and another method, so you choose whichever works best for you.